Good afternoon, John Wertz here. We're here with Commissioner Sid Miller. He's the incumbent up for re-election for Agricultural Commissioner. And it's Thursday, December 16th at 3 p.m. With me is DJ Fike, Dale Fessenden, Pat and Dennis Tibbs. Commissioner, welcome.
It's good to be back with y'all. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming back and thank you for answering our questionnaire.
Okay.
And as we discussed a few minutes ago, if you like, take up to 5 minutes with your opening, and then we'll go around the table with Q&A, and then wrap it up after that.
Okay.
Well, thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
I'm Commissioner Sid Miller with the Texas Department of Agriculture. I was first elected to this office, statewide office, by the way, in 2015, serving my second term, seeking my third term as Agriculture Commissioner. The Texas Department of Agriculture does a lot of things that people don't know we do. We're all about cows, sows, and plows, but we're a lot of other stuff to our people. We're Texas leads the nation in agriculture exports: cattle, cotton, wool, mohair, sheep, goats, hay, horses. And we're second or third in nearly everything else. So it's a $120 billion industry. So it's always been the glue, that even from the earliest inception of our state, that's held our state together. Second only to oil and gas. 1 in 5 jobs in Texas are somehow related or tied directly to agriculture. So it's very important to our state. We get people forget where their food comes from. They think it comes from the grocery store and heat comes from the furnace, but it's pretty important. It's a matter of national security. If we become dependent on some foreign power for our food and fiber, we'll lose all of our freedoms. So it's an honor to lead the agency. I'm an 8th generation farmer and rancher. I still make my living off the land. I'm a graduate of the A&M system, specifically Tarleton State University, where I had a degree in vocational agriculture. So when I got out for the first 5 years out of college, I was an ag teacher, was taught vocational agriculture as a FFA advisor and 4-H leader. So I like to tell people as I go around the state that our greatest natural resource we have is our youth. And we put a big emphasis on that because the average age of the Texas farmer and rancher is 59 and a half. So we have to have a new generation come along to feed and clothe us. We work, I've completely retooled the agency. We just went through Sunset. The Sunset agency said we were the best agency that they had reviewed in years. So we're very, very proud of that. No recommendations to take any part of our agency and move it to anywhere else. They did say that they would recommend other agencies follow a lot of our protocols and how we retool the agency. We've made it a lot more efficient. So as we move forward, I've decided to run for re-election. I was asked by President in the fall before the election to go do a FBI background check, and to go through a Senate confirmation. The plan was for me to lead the USDA after the election. Of course, that didn't quite turn out the way we'd liked for it to. So at that point, I would have not, I would have had to resign. But as I look back over my life, being raised in the farm and ranch family, and raised just about every type of livestock and every type of crop, and including hemp, and being an ag teacher and being a lawmaker, serving as chairman of agriculture and livestock. I think God's been preparing me for this slot in time. But 3 other groups tried to recruit me to run for governor this time. They were upset with our current governor. I gave that some thought, decided that now was not the time for me to do that. This office typically has been a stepping stone for a politician to move up to a higher office, whether it be governor or comptroller or lieutenant governor. For me, I'm the ag commissioner today. I'll be the ag commissioner next week. I'll be the ag commissioner next month, next year. If I get reelected, I'll be the ag commissioner 4 years from now. So I'll really work at it. And first commissioner we've had, I know all the previous commissioners, and that's fine. They did it their way. I'm doing it mine. I take it as this is my job, and it's a full-time job for me, and campaigning is secondary for me. But I don't neglect that either. But we try to get it all done. So, you know, I'd like to be reelected with this group's support. Of course, y'all are very influential and powerful, particularly in Republican circles, very well respected. So that's why I'm here today at the request of John to come down and interview with you.
Well, thank you for coming in, appreciate it, thank you for that overview. You know, out of all the products that you just mentioned, you know, crops and livestock, cattle, horse, sheep, goats, hogs, it says here you're also known to raise a lot of cane.
That's it.
I didn't know that. Actually, I did know that.
Yeah, I have been on the racing cane, yeah.
I hadn't met any cane raisers yet, but I know some, those of us who raise some cane. So you have sued the federal government to try to keep them out of Texas and get their meat hooks in us.
Most recently sued the Biden administration and Secretary Tom Vilsack. Real quickly, it was over the pandemic relief for farmers, which I'm for. We had a tough time of it, and you know we want to keep farmers in business. This particular program they came up with was a loan forgiveness program. If you had a USDA loan or USDA guaranteed loan, they would forgive the loan. Not only forgive the loan, but give you an extra 20%. So, you know, if you $100,000 loan, we'll pay that off, and here's 20 grand, go knock yourself out. That wasn't actually what I sued over. What I sued over was how you qualified to participate in the program. The qualification required that you be black or a minority, and no one else could apply. So I sued, not as the ag commissioner, I sued as a farmer, as an individual. I didn't want to use state resources to go after that. My law firm was Sid Miller and America First Legal, former Trump's legal advisors, and we won that case. I also sued my own state. I sued our governor when he added a third week of early voting. Totally unconstitutional. He didn't have the authority to do that. The judge dismissed it because he said it wasn't a good case. He said it's just too close to the election and it's already done. So I didn't file it soon enough. I also filed suit against our Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and all 31 senators, even though our governor had a change of heart and decided that he would remove the statewide mask mandate. He only removed it from state property, so that meant you should be able to come to your capital and not wear a mask, unless you go to the Senate. In the Senate, Dan Patrick decided not only did you have to wear a mask, but in January, February, March, they required you to stay outside and get a COVID test. So 30 minutes out in the freezing cold before you could come in and address your government. So, you know, even though I hadn't passed, my budget hadn't been passed and they hadn't passed my sunset bill, I thought it was the right thing to do. Somebody had to stand up. That was just wrong. I sued them. They slow rolled it, moved my hearing 3 different times, and we finally had the hearing, had a good hearing like the last week of the session, and the Travis County, of course, liberal judge ruled that she didn't have jurisdiction. So that one kind of died. So that's my, I've never sued anybody in my life, but this last year I've like 3 of them. So, well, I did sue the Obama administration several times for federal overreach.
Just real quick on that lawsuit over the farm loans, did they change the qualification criteria or did they drop that plan?
Well, when I filed my lawsuit, the judge where we filed it, that court gave us a injunction, and there was another case, and that judge gave him a restraining order. But my injunction actually stopped everything. Don't take any applications, no checks, don't write any, and they had 90 days to appeal. They just never appealed. There was no victory parade or confetti cannons go off. It just died. Yeah. So we won without a lot of fanfare, but we did stop it.
Okay, DJ.
Your department is over the school lunches.
Yes.
Thank you for removing all that stuff. I used to be a teacher. I was retired, and I would walk in the cafeteria and look at the lunch tray and go, "Look." I wouldn't have there was nothing on it, really. I mean, they didn't have a lot of food on it to begin with, and most of that did go in the trash. So how does your department, schools are in the big news right now, with
Right.
all this stuff in school boards. How does your department work with school districts to get local produce and better lunches into the schools?
Well, when I became commissioner, of course, remember, I was also a teacher, an ag teacher, and I hated those mandates from the 11th floor of Austin or Washington DC and somebody wearing penny loafers with no socks telling me how to run my ag department, it just, and then I actually served on the school board after that, and I saw even more unfunded mandates and, edicts coming down for our school districts to do that, would be better made at the local level. So when I got into office the first 2 weeks, I had all my nutrition people come in. I'm trying to get my hands around this $6 billion industry. I mean, I oversee a $6 billion agency. My budget is larger than the budget of 31 governors, so it's no small agency. The biggest is food and nutrition. That's $5 billion just food and nutrition. So I said, how many mandates have we put on our schools since we've been running the school nutrition program? Oh, they brought me in a stack that big. I said, well, guess what? And I just started tearing them up like Pelosi tore up Trump's speech that night. I said, we're not doing any more mandates. They're all out. I said, I'm a local control guy. In my first press conference, I announced that I was giving amnesty to cupcakes, and we would no longer tell room mothers whether they could bring cookies or cupcakes to school anymore. We're gonna leave that up to the local school board, and how about the parents have a say in what their kids eat? So we got out of that business. But that didn't mean that I didn't care about child nutrition. So we worked with the schools. We used the carrot instead of the stick. So when I got there, my schools, I asked around and said, how much local produce do you serve in our schools? We don't serve any. I said, well, why not? Well, we don't have time to go to the farmer's market. We don't know any farmers. It's just easier to order from Cisco or Benny Keith, and it's flash frozen. We thaw it out and put it on the tray. And, well, that's why we had, instead of having healthy kids, you referred to, we had healthy trash kids, because they wouldn't eat that stuff, especially after Michelle Obama, did her deal. So I thought, well, we got to get some good, fresh food in front of these kids that they'll eat. So I devised a plan to put in a clearinghouse, and we had a conference in the summer. We'd never had those before, and I brought the farmers in and the cafeteria and the nutritional people, and we linked all them up, and we found a way to put the farmers into the cafeterias. And it's worked really. It's voluntary. We have well over half our schools participating now on a voluntary basis. And last year, where our schools were buying zero local product, they bought $65 million worth of local product. No added salt, no preservatives, no dyes, never flash frozen, cooked fresh, and guess what? They eat it. And we're seeing the number of kids coming back into the lunchroom is steadily rising every year because the food tastes good again. So,
It's amazing. Bill?
Okay, I found some of your comments regarding the USDA very interesting. So let's role play. It's this January 20th, 2025, and you get a phone call from the White House. President Trump says, would you consider being our USDA lead?
I actually interviewed when he first got elected. They didn't go with me. They went with Sonny Perdue, which is Governor George. He had more executives. That's fine. We get that. The second time, I said, do I need to interview? And they said, no, we've seen what you did. We like what you did. You're it. We don't need to interview anybody. So I've kind of been through that process. So it'd be the same answer I had before. I mean, they asked me if I would do it. And I said, there's nothing I wouldn't do for the president. I mean, what do you need? So I would do it. I certainly like being the ag commissioner. It's the best job I've ever had, and I think God has put me in this spot in this moment in time for this occasion. But that's something that I couldn't tell the president if he needs my help. I'm not going to help you, so I'd do it.
Okay, so the follow-on question. You said in your answers as well as verbally a little bit ago, you're a local control guy, and we like local control. So you're a local control guy. Why is there a need for USDA? If it's somebody we have to sue, why do you need anybody at the federal level involved in agriculture?
Well, it's kind of like picking the lesser of two evils. Let's take the nutrition program that we were talking about. There are federal laws and federal guidelines that our schools have to follow. It's better for my agency to institute that rather than some other bureaucrats like the Texas Education Agency or something like that, because I am a local control guy, and I'm gonna put the least amount of restrictions and the most amount of freedoms on those schools as possible. Dealing with our farmers, we have a choice of me sending my Texas Department of Agriculture people out there, trained under me to be like-minded, or they can send a federal USDA agent out there, which I can guarantee you, ask the farmers, they don't want any federal people coming on their property. So if you're gonna have to have regulations and somebody implement it, I think it's better for me, with my philosophy, than some bureaucrat that's unaccountable to the voters.
Okay, my time's up.
I have a question that may seem, it may not be very smart, but anyway, everybody talks about it as being energy independent. Are we agriculturally independent?
We are, yes and no. We export about 30% of what we grow. But we're a seasonal country, and we can't grow tomatoes, and certain avocados, and we can't grow bananas, and there's certain things that we just have to import. So we import a lot too. But can we be self-sustaining? We could. We just have to do that bananas and avocado, we grow some avocados, we grow some citrus, but mangoes and, stuff like that, we don't really import. So we are self-sufficient for the most part. And that's why it's important that we maintain a healthy agriculture industry. And I said it earlier in my introduction, I said, it's one thing to be energy dependent on a foreign country. But if you become, food dependent on a foreign country, that's when you lose all your freedoms. You don't have a choice. You don't have to drive a car, but you do have to eat.
We used to grow citrus.
We did.
For the last few years, and especially more recently, we keep hearing about foreign countries buying up farm and timber land. So, I think the most recent one was Canada buying half of East Texas for their timber. Doesn't Canada have enough timber of their own? And what role does the agricultural department play in timber? And what power would it have to stop the stuff being sold to the foreign countries?
Okay. We do a lot of stuff. You think we do a lot of stuff that we don't do. First of all, we don't do timber. That's under the Texas Forest Service, which is part of the Texas Agri-Life, or the A&M system. And it's always been that way. Most states' agriculture departments also oversee the timber, but we don't. It just wasn't set up that way. So we don't do animals. People think we're in charge of the health of animals. That's the Texas Animal Health Department. We do eggs, but we don't do chickens. We do Christmas trees, but we don't do lumber. I mean, it's kind of weird. You'd think they'd consolidate all that. But we really, yeah. Now, to the first part of your question, I've been highly active and a huge advocate of stopping foreign ownership of agricultural land. The Canadians come down and buy our land. American can't buy land in Canada. The Chinese came down to Del Rio and bought 140,000 acres. A former military officer with intention of building a wind farm. Cavalry Logic says, we don't need to give them access to our grid. What are we doing, people? Wake up. So I was screaming all over trying to get the legislature to do something. Donna Campbell did. She passed a bill to stop those Chinese from building a wind farm on that 140,000 acres. The sale was consummated, it was over, they owned it, so we couldn't undo that. But we could stop them from building the wind farm. Now he's gonna build a solar farm, so, it's one of those things you can't win for losing. So, but I am advocating, and I've met with state legislators, federal lawmakers, to try to put something in to stop foreign ownership of agricultural land. you know, those Chinese coming over here and buying, a Chinaman can't even buy land in China, much less, I mean, we let them buy it over here. I mean, much less me or you buying land over there. So, I mean, in other states, there's several other states that do not allow the foreign ownership of agricultural land. Now, commercial, that's a different deal. I mean, you got Toyota and BMW and, you know, worldwide companies that, you know, we're gonna have to do business with on a commercial.
They usually start like a sister company
Right.
owned by Americans.
Sure.
So to stop the solar, we need more legislation.
We just need a blanket legislation to stop foreign ownership of agricultural land. It's not that hard.
Okay.
Is that something that you can champion through?
I do champion,
your
I
office?
did champion that, and I was the one that inspired Senator Campbell to file that legislation.
Okay, so,
And if you followed me on Facebook, you know that I was ranting and raving about that, you know, a year and a half ago, or a year and a half ago.
raising Cain.
Yeah, raising Cain.
So why was it so narrow and restrictive? Why wasn't it renewables or, you know, like, you know, was said, just stop the,
You know, I didn't have any input into it. I mean, she was, you know, had her staff and the state, you know, legislative council drafts all that, so. I imagine she told me, she said, I want to stop the Chinese from putting a wind farm in South Texas, so that's what they did. They didn't think beyond that.
okay,
But they'll come back next session and, you know, tweak it, that's the way they normally do.
whenever that's gonna be, who knows? Fourth session or the 88th or whatever. Under the general category, please list any federal grant monies you would refuse because of federal strings. You mentioned we do receive federal funds for rural communities. Good news is it comes in block grants. Do those not have strings attached to them, the block grants?
We have
or-
a general guideline, you know, this is to be used for job creation, or this is to be used for infrastructure, or this is to be used specifically for upgrades in colonias. And then, you know, we write that material, and then we, you know, get approval from upstream, and then we send those monies out. So I have a good bit of control over that.
Okay, but still no strings attached?
Well, no, there's
per
strings. I
se?
mean, we're responsible for it. If, you know, if we give a grant to a city to, you know, revitalize and upgrade their sewer system, and they don't do it, you know, we're responsible for getting that money back.
Yeah,
You know, so
but it's on our terms, not necessarily on federal
it's on both,
terms.
it's a combination.
Combination,
It's a little
that's right.
complicated, but,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay. All right, DJ.
sorry about that. I thought I had to turn on. It'll turn down, but it won't turn completely off.
We've mentioned several areas of control or concern that your office deals with. Nutrition, school nutrition, farmers and whatnot, and you said no animals or animals? No animals.
We don't oversee the welfare of animals. That's the animal health department.
Okay,
That actually started before we had an agriculture department. It was formed, the animal health department was formed during the Longhorn cattle drives with the fever ticks that started infecting all the herds as they drove up north. So immediately the Texas Animal Health Commission was formed to deal with that. And in 1907, the agriculture department was formed.
okay. So for the rest of us that aren't familiar with what all your office covers, could you just kind of briefly explain to the rest of us how,
The one thing we do with animals,
well, everything?
we're the, basically the de facto chamber of commerce for the state. So we do all the marketing. Part of that, we run the livestock export facilities. We have 4 on the Rio Grande River, and I just built a brand new one here in Houston at the airport. We didn't have an adequate facility there. And we needed that because when I came on board, there's a Go Texan program. It's been around 20 years, and it's, you know, the Texas with the circle around. It's the brand. If you go to HEB, or you'll see that, you know, logo on there. That means it's a exclusively Texas-made, Texas-grown product. I just immediately thought, you know, we're missing the boat. So my first 6 months, I instituted a global outreach initiative, and me or somebody, one of my members of the executive staff, we were on every globe on the continent marketing Texas, and it was just, people just love to do business with, just show up with the hat, the accent, the boots, the belt buckle, they just love to do, I mean, they just, all you gotta do is show up and they're ready to deal with you. So it was very easy. So, we did that. That's why we had to, build a new facility here in Houston so we could airship those bulls and horses and embryos and things like that out. I'm in negotiations. One reason I'm running for re-election to build a new facility in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're dealing with the DFW Airport and Alliance Airport. We need a second hub. The only one here that will haul our animals out is United, and they're limited to where they will, fly, the parts of the world they fly into. I've just built a brand new one in Del Rio. We didn't have one there. Department of Agriculture owns that, free and clear. I didn't use any taxpayer dollars to build that. I did a little horse trading to get that one done. We do, we've been so successful with this. I have an office in Argentina. We've had tremendous gains in Central and South America with the livestock genetics, selling bulls and cows and embryos and semen and horses and things like that. I mean, it's just overwhelming us, so I opened an office there. I had plans to open an office in China, in Beijing, and also one in the Middle East, and then COVID hit, and we hadn't got there yet. So it just hadn't been, kind of threw us off trail, but that's still in the works. We're the Consumer Protection Agency for the state. The pesticides, we do the ag pesticides. We also do structural pesticides, people that come in your businesses and homes. And when I got there, we were licensing convicted felons and letting them come into your business and your homes, and immediately stopped that. We oversee the organic program. That had a 2.5-year backlog just to get a license. I fixed that in 90 days, and that's all been running on time ever since. Weights and measures, that's scales, was fuel pumps, things like that. The fuel pumps, it was taking 12 years to get them all inspected. That was unsatisfactory. Only had 80% compliance, so 1 out of 5 times you pulled up the pump, you were gonna get ripped off. So that was one of the things I retooled, and I retooled all of that. We're getting them not only inspected every 12 months, but we were getting them calibrated to 0 error. And we were driving 750,000 miles less doing it and getting 60% more inspections done every day. And I laid off 19 employees because we were more efficient, we didn't need them anymore, but with my new program. And this wasn't part of it wasn't in statute, but I developed on my own a credit card skimmer protection program. And I trained my inspectors how to open the pumps and check them for these skimmers that they were putting, to steal your credit card information. And this is what got me in trouble. Every time we found one, I had my communications people call the TV station and the radio station and the newspaper to alert everybody. Say, hey, at the 7-Eleven down here on Main, we found 3 credit card skimmers. You need to be aware, when you're using these. And then I'd show them how to, check and see if there's, well, the Convenience Store Association hired their lobbyist, and quite frankly, the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker were all jealous of that program because I had my name, phone number, email address on 400,000 fuel pumps around the state. It said, howdy, this is Commissioner Sid Miller. If this pump rips you off, give me a call. I'll fix it. I mean, that's paraphrasing. They said a little more than that. So they took it away from me and sent it to the same agency that oversees massage parlors and elevators.
Elevators?
Yeah. And they really
That
had,
makes a lot of sense.
we had this equipment that we used to calibrate the pumps, to measure them, see if they're accurate. Very expensive, really technical equipment. And in the legislation, I'm supposed to bring it all into my warehouse, refurbish it, and get it ready and, give it to the other agency. I brought it all in, did all that. It sat there for over 2 years, and it was finally sold at auction. They never even come picked it up. So there's nothing going. There's no protection of it. So anyway, that's, what else do we do? Office of Rural Healthcare. I'm in charge of rural healthcare in 191 counties. And, you know, the pandemic hit, and we were struggling before to keep those rural hospitals open, but when the pandemic, it was worse. They couldn't get PPE equipment, they couldn't get masks or hand sanitizer or gowns, so I pulled in my ag inspectors, guys that would do pesticides or eggs, and I opened my warehouse, and we worked with emergency management, and we gathered up all the masks and hand sanitizer, and worked with our Go Texan members to start making hand sanitizer, and Farouk Shami that has the big factory here, he's a Go Texan member, and he's quit making cosmetics and started making hand sanitizer for us, so we loaded that in the trucks and you know, went out to the rural parts of the state, make sure that they had their PPE equipment and that kind of. Matter of fact, 60 Minutes did a show on that about how we were the plight of the rural hospitals and what we were doing to keep them open. There we go. I have over 120 statutory functions that we perform. We don't have enough time to go through all of them, but we've got a lot of things. The people don't know what we do. I mean, we inspect ping pong balls. Yeah, you didn't know we was a ping pong ball inspector, but we actually do that for the Texas Lottery to make sure that, you know, you're not getting ripped off. It has to be done in a vacuum chamber. Human hands can never touch that ping pong ball. The oil off your finger will make them heavy on one side and make a certain number turn up. So, I mean, it's inside baseball, but it's a fun job.
All right.
I'm gonna tell you one fun story, while we're talking about fun stuff. So this job is so fun. You're back in the pandemic when we ran out of toilet paper. You couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. One of my inspectors was over this huge distribution warehouse, and he called me and said, "Hey, boss," he said, "this place is full of toilet paper." I said, "Why aren't they shipping it out?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Get the manager, I want to talk to him." Got him on the phone, I said, "What are y'all doing sitting on all that toilet? You can't find a roll of toilet paper anywhere, on any shelf, in any store." He said, "We can't sell it." I said, "Why not?" He said, "It's illegal to sell it in the United States." I said, "Why would it be illegal to sell toilet paper?" He said, "Well, there's a law that any item sold in the United States, the instructions have to be in English, and this is all in Spanish." I said, "You gotta be kidding me. I don't think anybody I know needs instructions in English on how to use toilet paper." So we had gotten very good at getting waivers, especially through the food nutrition. So I called and got a waiver, and that allowed them to sell the Spanish labeled toilet paper, and we had toilet paper back on the shelves. But food and nutrition during the pandemic was really chaotic, but we managed that. I had to go I'm responsible for 5 million school meals each day. And we went from one day feeding 5 million meals in the cafeteria to trying to figure out how to feed those kids at home. I mean, it's a federal mandate, I had to keep feeding them. So I had to I think I got almost 100 different waivers to allow me to do that. And we worked through that and got that done. The same time, we launched the hemp program a brand new program on March the 9th, and then we had to vacate our building on March the 16th. So we had to launch that whole new program, out of our pickups and on laptops, and with zero, as a matter of fact, the legislature gave us zero funding to launch that program. So we've overcome a lot of obstacles, but I like to tell my people, we're just rednecks. We can fix anything with nothing. That's just the way we do it.
So there you go.
Your toilet paper story made my day. It's worth being here.
It's a fun
Okay.
job.
I'm not gonna roll you forward to 2025 anymore, I'm gonna roll you back to 2016.
Okay.
Governor Perry's running for president, and he said, there's some federal agencies that need to be abolished. If I get to be president, I'm gonna knock 3 of them out, and, well, whatever they were.
Yeah.
Why should the USDA not be one of those agencies that is abolished? I go back to my question of what business does the federal government have in Texas agriculture, or any other state's agriculture?
Okay, that's a fair question. I'm kind of a small government guy, and it goes. But we talked about this twice already. But we don't subsidize farmers anymore. We haven't for years. People think we still do subsidies. We don't. Probably 10, 15 years ago, we switched from subsidizing farmers to a crop insurance program where we offer crop insurance to farmers. The farmers aren't subsidized. The insurance companies get some subsidies out of it. So without the USDA, we have to put a floor under these farmers and keep them from getting completely wiped out so they can stay in business. If we didn't do that, you know, we would have one of these huge disasters and then we wouldn't have any farmers. They'd all be bankrupt. And then we'd get back to my point, we wouldn't be, you know, food independent. We would now have to rely on some other foreign entity to nourish us. And then that's when we're susceptible to losing our freedom. So I'm not for giving handouts. I don't believe in that. But occasionally we have to give a hand up and keep the farmer in business and make sure that, you know, he can continue to operate and get back on his feet.
Can that be done at a state level rather than a federal level?
You know, we don't do that at state level.
But could we?
We could.
Should we?
No, I don't think so. I think it's probably the function of a federal government because of this. It's would cause a patchwork of rules and regulations across all 50 states. I think it's better if we have some kind of uniform blanket protection that's uniform across the board. You would have some states that do too much, you know, and spend too many taxpayer dollars, and you'd have some states that don't do anything. The farmers would go out, and it'd just be a very imbalanced. This way, whether you like the federal government or not, most of us don't. It does put a level blanket all across the nation, and they know, and bankers can commit on the farm bill when they know what it is. Then they can plan 4, 5, 6 years down the road their finances, you know, what the equipment they're going to buy, if they're going to buy land or not, according to how the farm bill is written. So it's something that's highly watched. It's almost time to write it again. So it's an interesting process that receives a lot of scrutiny.
That same argument could be used to support the federal voting initiatives
It
of
could.
recent times.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Pat?
So how many employees does the Department of Agriculture have?
Okay, let me explain it to you a little bit. So the largest agriculture state is California. I hate being second to California, but they have an $80 billion wine industry we don't have, and that's where it comes from. They don't do the nutrition program, that's our biggie. They have a little over 2,500 employees. Florida's number 3, and they actually do the food nutrition, the school meals like we do. They have a little over 4,500 employees. I think we do it better, more efficient than either one of those. I know we do. And I have 604. And the reason we only have 604 is I outsource everything I possibly can to the private sector. Just like those fuel pumps. We had inspectors, you know, going out and inspecting those fuel pumps and calibrating them. I did away with that. I put private companies that are in the pump business calibrating pumps. I made it mandatory for those station owners to have them calibrated by an independent company. And that, we don't have to do it. I mean, private always does it better, faster, more efficient, economical. And so everything that I can, I outsource to the private sector.
Okay. A question about the flying cows. Are we importing and exporting air traffic cattle to other countries?
I'm in charge of marketing. Cattle, grain, wool, mohair, you know, whatever the product is, agriculture product. I don't have anything to do with importing. That's done for the USDA. I will tell you this. We were very aggressive in our marketing program, which I've told you about, and we found new markets. This is before the trade war with China and the tariffs and embargoes and stuff. So we had developed new markets all over the world for grain, sorghum, and other products. So when the tariff wars hit with China, they were buying 60% of our agriculture exports. Well, when they cut us off, we had farmers in the Midwest piling corn on the ground and soybeans, y'all may remember that. Of the 50 states, 49 of them, their agriculture exports just fell like a rock. There was one state where the agriculture exports went up, and that was Texas. And it's because we had out hustled everybody and had markets to go with ours, and they didn't.
And we're shipping crops and animals by air to other countries?
Sure.
And do we
And meat.
get some cows back?
We don't import, we export a lot more than we import. We get some, and it's mostly genetics. And we import some meat, beef and poultry and pork, but it's not a large amount.
Yeah. Okay.
On that subject, how many countries are we in, like Argentina? How many do we export to?
I really never added them up. I probably should know that, but no one's ever asked me that question. I've never added them up, but we go all over, Europe, the Middle East. We just got back from a trip to Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
When the grain embargo hit, we sent some of our grain sorghum to Dubai, some to Spain, some to Peru. They'd never bought any from us. So those are examples of how we kept our exports going, was those new markets. And basically, no one from Texas had ever been there and asked them. I sent my deputy to North Africa, and the Sudan bought 50,000 head of dairy cattle. Sudan. I mean, who's ever figured they'd buy anything? But they said, yeah, we need dairy cattle real bad over here. Well, guess what? We fix you up. And so that's what I said. It's pretty easy. No one else is. And no other ag commissioner's done that. And I get why. I mean, it doesn't say you have to do that. Well, I don't have to do it. I do it because I think it's the right thing to do for our farmers and for the economy in Texas. You can't take any campaign contributions from foreigners. You're not gonna get any votes there, so if you're trying to move up the ladders, you better off stand here and campaigning and raising money, right? But, like I said in the beginning, I'm the ag commissioner, and that's just my job, so that's the way I look at it.
So when you had ranked these states earlier between California 1, Texas 2, and Florida 3, that was in what value? Just
Overall agriculture production.
production. Okay.
Yeah.
And does that hold pretty much for exports, or is Texas?
No, we're the largest.
leader in
We are the
export?
largest export of agriculture goods. A lot of them are not ours. Some of them, a lot of it's ours, but a lot of it comes from other states too. And I'll give you an example of that. It kind of amazes people when I tell them this because a lot of people don't know, but Laredo, Texas is now the largest port in the United States. I mean, people are, what? I said, yeah, we have 17 ports in Laredo. In one day's time, between the state of Texas and the state of Tamaulipas, 14,000 trailer trucks come and go between those two states. Some days that's close to $1 billion worth of trade.
Wow.
And the majority of that is agriculture goods.
Going outbound.
Yeah, and some of it inbound. I mean, we import a lot of some of our vegetables, and especially off-season from Mexico.
True. Yeah. DJ.
I like those little red grapes from Chile. They're really
They come right through Laredo.
well, they're quite tasty.
Yeah.
Rice is one of. Does your office inspect the goods that are coming in, or
No.
do we just bring them in?
We do some. The main. Okay, this is getting way off in the deep end of it, but we inspect some produce down on the Mexican border. The USDA inspects some produce that comes in off the ship, and the FDA inspects some that comes in off ships. So the USDA inspects farm-raised goods. The FDA inspects non-farm food, like seafood, that's not farm raised. And it's kind of complicated, but yeah,
But we
We-
do a lot of rice exports, right?
we do. We send a lot of rice into Mexico, is our number one customer. Our rice production fell from 600,000 acres in Texas when the drought hit and the Highland Lakes, dried up, and our farmers down there didn't get any water. Went down to about 100,000 acres. We've since built some channel storage and have some water for them now. And our acreage is coming back, but a lot of that land, like on the Katy Prairie and stuff, has been developed. So, I mean, it was rice, it's gone now. So we're up to probably about 350,000 acres. We brought it back, but I don't know if we will ever get back to the 600,000 acres simply because that land's so valuable down there for development.
And that development around, I know, from Brazoria County,
Yeah.
the Alvin area had a lot of rice farms, and it's
Yeah,
like
it's just
blowing up.
Yeah.
So how much overall in Texas is urban development affecting our farmland?
Well, it does. We lose the equivalent of one farm a week in Texas to urban encroachment. But we got a lot of land in Texas, so it's not a threat yet, really. And we've learned to do a lot of what's called vertical farming. Where we greenhouse grow, and you can take a 2-acre greenhouse and produce the same amount of vegetables as 240 acres in the field. So I don't think it'll ever be a problem, but it is a shame to see that prime farmland, gone.
Thank you.
Yeah, because it's kind of hard to farm in West Texas. Okay, let's see here. You had made one of the statements here, what differentiates you from your opponents? And you said, I've totally reorganized the agency to a lean, efficient machine, and it's run like a business. What was you said the employee count, I believe, was 604?
Right.
What was the employee count when you took office versus the 604 now? And can you make any comparisons as far as budget savings or anything like that? In other words, how has the agency grown or shrunk in people, in products, in processing times and things like that?
Well, certain areas have grown that wasn't in my control. When I got there was over 700 employees, something like that. I don't remember the exact number. We could actually go back up to that number. I have the authority to go back up to that 700 and something, but I choose to keep a lot of those open and vacant because we can get by without them. Okay. What was the second part of your question?
Well, just any, compare growth versus shrinking, because we're all smaller government.
Well, there's some things I don't have control over.
Right.
Okay, so the federal government, in response to people being killed from E. coli and salmonella on spinach and other fresh vegetables, it's well intentioned, but it's too much government. Decided a whole new program called the Food Safety Inspection Act. So now someone has to go out to the farm and inspect and train the farmers and the farm hands on food safety if the product you're selling is to be eaten raw and fresh. So, I held up my hand, I said, we're the agency that we want to do that. We don't want the FDA coming out here going on these farms. I said, we're friends of the farmers, I'll do it. So that expanded our footprint a little bit. But those farmers know us, my people live in those communities, a lot of them are farmers themselves, and they trust us much more than they would some federal agent coming out there. And we can kind of, get along with them and do a kinder, gentler job with it than the FDA would. So with that, programs like that, I picked up 30 or 40 employees that I had to go hire. Same way as Texas populations expand and our schools expand, we have to have more personnel to oversee those you know, all that school nutrition. Plus, it's not just school, we do summer feeding programs, backpack programs, nursing homes, adult feeding programs. We work with area food banks, food pantries, Meals on Wheels. I mean, it's a big operation.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Does,
Pat?
does the Department of Agriculture do anything, oversee anything that would help to prevent or to repair the state from food shortages? Because rumor has it we're gonna have more food shortages coming on. So does your department do anything?
We do
to
that,
help?
sure, yeah. We have a produce recovery program where we take surplus produce products that the farmer is too much of, or it's blemished, or the market crashed and he can't sell it at a profit. We have a program where we can come in there and pick that up, and then we take it to the 21 area food banks around the state so it's not wasted. And I think that's actually overwhelmingly supported by the Republicans and Democrats alike, to not to waste that food. So we do that.
Cool.
Okay. Well, you'd just suggested that a federal program like the USDA might be beneficial because it provides sort of a consistent platform for all the other states. So some of that could be said about the Department of Energy, the EPA,
Sure.
you know, Department of Education.
The EPA is pretty much that way, yeah. It's uniform across the states.
Yeah, but should it be? I don't know. But so what agencies can justify their existence by saying, we need to be consistent across the states? Education, most folks don't think so.
I don't think so in education. I think the states can handle that one. We have before, and we did for years. You could probably do away with the agriculture department. I would be an advocate for not doing that, but the farmers would probably survive without it. You know, most of them probably wouldn't miss it that much until they had a disaster and, you know, had to file bankruptcy. That's the thing, the only thing really about that worries me, is how do we keep them in business in a, you know, total wipeout of the industry, which we've had occasionally. You know, droughts are the biggest danger of that, when, you know, we can't have any production, so.
But back up a little bit on the question about taking that food and delivering that excess food, delivering it to food banks and things like that. When that situation occurs, do the taxpayers pay the farmer, or does the farmer make a contribution, or how does that unsold food get from the farm to the food bank?
It's a partnership between private and public. The legislature, and, you know, and I don't, you know, make the laws or make the budget, but they allocate so many dollars for us to do that in a grant form. It's about the only grant money we get from the state. My department does, but they do give us a certain amount of money, and they want us to use that to pick up the surplus products and distribute them to the food banks.
And does that fund accumulate from year to year if you don't use it?
No,
You just lose it or
no,
use it?
it's 2 years specific, and
Okay.
for each year there's so much allocated.
Okay.
Is that a lose it
And
or use it? Is
this-
that what you said?
Yeah,
The,
use it or lose it.
kind of to expand on your question, back before the legislature met, and because of the pandemic, the state revenue was down. So Governor Abbott came out and with a decree for every state agency to cut their budgets by 5%. Okay? I sent him a letter back and told him I wasn't cutting mine by 5%. That wasn't enough. I was gonna cut mine by 10. And the only place I had to cut it, because my agency, we don't use taxpayer dollars. We really don't. The only money I had was to cut the food bank money. And so that's where I cut it. Oh my God, it was a screaming bloody murder when I did that. But I said, look, y'all probably gonna put it back in there, you know, but if y'all want me to cut something, that's where I'm gonna cut it, because we don't have to do that. And so that's, you know, that's where I cut it. And they put it back, you know, anyway. And pandemic relief, they got 10 times what we were doing, you know, so they didn't really, if it would've been fine if we'd have cut it and left it out.
So who pays for the operation of the ag department?
Our people we serve. So when I,
Just fees and things?
what?
Just fees?
Yeah, when I came on board, it was half and half. The taxpayers were paying half, we call that general revenue, the state would pay half, and then we collected half through fees. Well, that meant people like Buc-ee's and H-E-B and Walmart were being subsidized by the taxpayer. Well, that's one thing I changed, and I caught hell for doing that. We stopped that, and we don't take any taxpayer dollars anymore. You pay for your own program. When you get a pesticide license, we charge you enough to run the program. And she doesn't have to pay taxes by not having she may not have a pesticide license, but she was subsidizing half your license. So we don't do that anymore.
And what is the budget?
Oh, the budget overall is $6 billion. To run the registration program, the fees is about 50 million. So over 95 cents of every dollar in my budget is federal dollars. The federal programs we run.
We're probably getting close to the end here.
Okay.
Couple of questions. This is kind of a either or you could say both.
Okay.
Who's the worst president, Obama or Biden?
All of the above?
It's ridiculous.
It's three
It's
choices.
a close race, but if I had to pick one, I'd say Biden. Because he's not president. I mean, he's just not there. I mean,
Right.
there is no president.
Right. When you came into office, and this kind of ties in with Dale's question, how much of the regulations in place did you have removed to make the agency more effective?
I removed everything I could. Like I
Was
moved
there
all
a
the,
percent or something? Or?
oh, I don't know what the percent was. 100% of the food nutrition regulations, that's it. We're not doing, we tie them up.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We're gonna work with them instead of, over-regulating them. We did that in other agencies too. Certain agencies you can't do much, like pesticides. We had those licensed people that convicted felonies, we stopped that. And actually, my pesticide audits went up over 300% because it was just, I told my pal, I said, look, I don't want any people's pets or children poisoning my watch. We're gonna run a tight ship. This is serious stuff.
Right.
And so, by that one, we probably did more than anybody had done. But I felt it was necessary to protect the public.
Okay. Looks like we're about out of time. If you'd like to take up to 5 minutes on your closing, feel free. Or
Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all meeting with me today. I hope y'all learned something about agriculture and the Department of Agriculture. It's a very interesting department that not a lot of people know a lot about. So hopefully you've got a little broader insight into what we do and how we serve the public. I was asked to run for governor and I decided not to, and the reason was not that that wouldn't be something I would consider at some point, but I've got some items that I hadn't finished as your ag commissioner, and if I leave, they're not going to happen, and so there's still work to do. I want to stick around, get elected for another 4 years, and make sure that gets done, that comes to fruition. I didn't tell you about this, but I have a bank. It's called the Texas Agriculture Finance Authority. We can work with, in the past, they've made direct loans to farmers, and the taxpayers lost a lot of money. We can guarantee loans to farmers, so I chose the route not to make direct loans to farmers, to compete with banks. But we do scrutinize and guarantee loans to farmers that get their loan from a bank. I like that because the bank vets them, and then I have a board that re-vets them. And we guarantee about $2 million worth of loans a year, and we haven't had one default. So I'm pretty proud of that, and the taxpayer hasn't been on the hook for anything. So that helps farmers that are kind of marginal to go ahead and get financing at a decent rate, and it helps those farmers out. We are looking at, I do have some bonding authority with that group that the legislature has given us, up to 500 million. We're looking at some solid investments to help the State Fair of Texas on a long-range basis to redo the fair park and improve the state fair. And through that, my goal is to improve agriculture education and the number of scholarships that we can get into the hands of those young kids, you know, to be educated in some type of agriculture field. We're doing that, looking at doing that. We haven't done it yet, but we're working with the Northeast Texas State Fair in Tyler, the fair out at Lubbock. So those are some of the partners that we're looking at. And so that's another reason I'm trying to stay around till I get that off the ground, get it working smoothly.
Okay, all right, good deal.
All right.
Thank you again for coming in. Good
Thank
luck
y'all.
in your re-election campaign.
You bet. Thank y'all very much.
Yes, sir.